In three, two. All right, it's time to talk with our featured guest, Dr. Sampada Deshpande. Sampada, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. I know we were talking a little bit about it before we started, but tell the listeners where you're from.
Sure. I'm a general dentist and I'm based in San Francisco.
Nice. Have you always have lived in San Francisco or no?
No, so I grew up in the Middle East and I was born in a city called Muscat, which is the capital of Oman. Very quiet, very peaceful country. And I was there until about the age of 15, after which my parents wanted to start a business. And so they moved our little family to Dubai. And that's where I finished high school. And at the time, there wasn't a dental school in Dubai. So I ended up going for dental school to India and graduated from dental school there in 2013. And after that, I started my journey of navigating dental school applications in the US, which is like a story in itself. But that's where I'm from.
Wow. Navigating dental school in the US. How is that like?
Yeah, it is pretty complicated. When I graduated in 2013 from India, I was president of the student council. I had hundreds of volunteering hours. I had good grades. So I really thought that everything was, everything on my application looked good, that I would get into school and it would be not easy, but it would be fairly straightforward. I had mentors who had gotten into a dental school in the US in their first attempt. So I looked at that and thought, oh, okay, that could be me. But it wasn't. It took me 3 years and 3 application cycles to finally get accepted into dental school. And I ended up doing an international program. There's about 30 schools in the US that accept international applicants. And not all 30 schools will accept you because some of them require you to have a green card or be a US citizen. So the actual number of schools that most of us can apply to is probably much smaller. It's like less than 10.
Wow.
Very competitive. The time that I got into University of Washington, there were 800 applications and we had 8 seats. We were expecting to have only 6 seats, but they increased our class size and made it 8. So it's very competitive and it was quite a struggle to get into school.
Why is it so this is for mainly people who are outside of the like immigrants, right? Like who are outside of the country kind of coming in. You were a dentist before. I mean, you were a
Correct.
dentist in like, Dubai or India, or like let's just say anybody else like in South America, any place, right? But you
Correct.
come into America. Why is it so competitive?
It's competitive because in a lot of countries, practicing dentistry doesn't really give you the kind of benefits that it sometimes gives people in the US. And there are a lot of reasons why people want to move to the US. I mean, better work opportunities, a better lifestyle, better income opportunity. But if you think about the number of people who are applying to get into school and the number of trained, well-trained, highly qualified dentists who are all applying for the same program, it just ends up being super competitive. I mean, to give you an example, some of the applicants or colleagues of mine who were applying to the same schools as me, some of them had PhDs. They were faculty in their own countries at dental schools there, or they had like masters in public health, masters in like health administration. So many dentists from overseas, they will come to the US, get all of this extra training and do all of these courses to get themselves ready, to make themselves look like a better applicant when it finally comes time to apply. So the bar is set very high, and these people who are applying to schools are just extremely well qualified.
What did you do to, like, what school did you go to then?
I ended up going to the University of Washington in Seattle. So in my third cycle of applications, I had 3 acceptances, and then I just really enjoyed my interview at the University of Washington. I really liked Seattle because the interview was towards the end of summer, which is the best time in Seattle. Very
Yeah.
misleading because I later noticed the winter is terrible because it's super rainy and it's overcast like 6 months of the year. But yeah, I ended up going to UW and absolutely loved it.
Why did you enjoy the interview process so much in Seattle?
I think it was mainly how it was an intensive process. There were like 3 days of interviewing. And the,
Wow.
the first day was we do this thing called a bench exam, which is very similar to how REB is conducted now, which is basically mannequin-based preparation. So you do like class twos or crown preps, stuff like that. And every school has a similar way of seeing whether candidates are, calibrated or if they're ready to get into dental school. But the process at UW, even though it was kind of intensive and strenuous, it was kind of made very chill because of faculty. I think the faculty at the school, I ended up being able to connect with some of them at the interview process. They seemed very, very nice. Even the proctors at the school who were dental students at the time, they were super helpful. And I don't know, it's sometimes you have like a gut feeling about a program and you
Yeah.
decide that it's kind of the one for you. And I also really love the fact that it was a fully integrated program. So some international programs in schools across the US, they have their own separate class. So they're not fully integrated into the traditional domestic DDS program. Whereas mine at UW, like the 8 of us were kind of thrown into class with the rest of everyone who was doing traditional DDS. So I really like that part of my program, and that's kind of why I chose it.
That's cool. So then you
Yeah.
did that. Did you how long did it take? Normal amount of years?
Yeah. So my program was 2 years.
Okay.
Basically, once you get accepted into a program, you join the DDS class towards like the end of second year. So you finish like the end of second year and third year, fourth year with them. Some schools have like a slightly longer program. They have 3 years. And then there's, I think, 1 or 2 schools that have you do the whole 4 years, which is a long time. I didn't apply to any of those programs. I just applied to the ones that were 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. And then from that
Yeah.
point on, you graduated. You immediately started associating somewhere in Seattle, or you moved to San Francisco?
Yeah, I graduated in 2018, and my first job was actually in Central Valley, California, in Modesto.
Oh.
Yeah, very, very interesting. But I ended up moving out to Modesto, and I was here for about 6 or 7 months. And during that time, I got married and moved back to Seattle and ended up being an associate there for about 2 years, and recently moved back to San Francisco. So I have a lot of family in the Bay Area, my husband and I, which is why we decided to move back here for good.
Got you. Why
Yeah.
did you go to Modesto?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons for that. After graduating from dental school, finding an associateship that also sponsors a work visa or sponsors something called an OPT, which is optional practical training, which is a requirement if you are on a student visa. Finding an associateship like that is very, very challenging, especially if you're graduating from a school that is located in a region that doesn't traditionally have a lot of international applicants. So in a state like California, for example, there's 5 dental schools, and there's a lot more international applicants. So employers over here, corporates or private practices, are very used to seeing international dentists or sponsoring their visa. They understand what the process involves. I found that to be one of the big reasons why I came here. Because when I was applying to associateships in Seattle, even though my interviewing process would go well, there would always be that hurdle. Oh, you need a visa. Never done that before. Don't know how it's done. And I'm a little nervous about it. And I was a little nervous about it too, because I really wanted to be with someone who understood the process, had done it before, because you want to make sure you're in the best situation possible, right?
Yeah.
And that time, the associateship I ended up finding in Modesto, I knew a friend of mine who had been through this like a similar associateship with the same employer, and I met my boss in person in Livermore. Thought he was great. He had a really nice personality, so decided to go for that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, Sampad, what was the reason you decided to? Why didn't you just say, like, I'm gonna be a dentist? I'm gonna be one of the first dentists in Dubai, and, like, you know what I mean, like, make it happen, own my own practice here. Why did you decide to bring it on over here?
Yeah, I have actually asked myself that question quite a few times over the last few years because I still have family in Dubai. So for me to actually practice in Dubai would be something very appealing, even now. But the main reason why I decided to come to dental school in the US and kind of make that my goal was really to continue my education more. I just really wanted to get more training in, and my sister at the time had already been through, she's not a dentist, but um she had she had studied in Canada and she was working in the US at the time, and she told me, like, you need to come here and study more, come here for your education. So that
Mhm.
was another motivating factor for me, and it really was for school. But when I was in school, I ended up meeting my husband, and it just happened that he has really good opportunities in the US too, because he's an engineer.
Mhm.
So sometimes life just kind of happens, and then you're in the right place at the right time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. And so, fast forward a little bit, you decided you're working in San Francisco. And I know we were talking a little bit before we started recording that you do plan to open up your own practice soon, right?
Yeah, I do.
When is that going to happen?
Um, Probably in maybe towards the end of next year, but I really want to get some more continuing education in before I begin. So about a year or a year and a half after I was working as an associate, I actually was in a job that even though it was paying me very, very well, I should say this,
Mhm.
I was extremely tired and extremely disillusioned. I'm sorry, there's like a fire truck moving past.
It's okay, no worries.
But uh, in my associateship, I was extremely unhappy. I was working very, very long hours. It was a 4-day work week, but I would start my day, like leave for my job at 6:30 in the morning and then come back at 7:30. So it was just
Jeez.
a long, long day.
Yeah.
And it was, we would see, I think, upwards of like 30 patients a day. And it was just complete chaos. Um, and at the time I was thinking, like, why did I go through dental school twice to,
Yeah.
to just, find myself in this associateship? This is like not worth it. What is wrong? And that's when I actually started to write and really like try to work out conflicts, like what is missing in my life. And I was able to recognize an experience that I had back in India when I was in dental school there, that I felt was missing in my life now. And that was actually working more with patients with special healthcare needs. In India, we had this center, which was for like vocational and rehabilitation training for kids and adults with special healthcare needs. And I would go every Sunday just to volunteer. So I would do like exercises with them, take them out for walks, play
Yeah.
games with them, fun stuff like that. Um, and then because I was in dental school, I had the opportunity to start like a dental clinic, which was focused on patients with disabilities. And it was at that center. And that was like kind of the biggest thing that happened to me when I was in dental school in India. It was like such an amazing experience. And it still continues to this day, even though I'm no longer in India. There are other students who are kind of continuing that tradition.
Mhm.
And I realized that I actually am not seeing any patients with intellectual or developmental disabilities as a practitioner in that associateship that I was at. And that has kind of led to a series of other things, kind of that realization, I actually went back to school for academic and didactic training. So I did a fellowship called LEND, which stands for Leadership and Education in Neurodevelopmental Disabilities. And that was out in Seattle. I graduated in June. And I plan to do more clinical training, which is focused on patients with disabilities next year. So only once that is done, will I feel kind of confident and ready to start my practice, because I really want my practice to be an inclusive space for people with disabilities. So not just ADA compliance, but really a place where they will get diagnosed and get the treatment they want. Which is why I want to wait a little bit till I start my practice.
This is going to be a practice only with patients or with people with disabilities, or just the general practice, and then you're specialized in that?
It would be open to everyone. So a general practice, but especially patients with disabilities would be able to get their treatment there. I find that most practices here, and many of my past associateships are included in that, we usually refer our patients out to a hospital or to a teaching facility whenever we see patients with special healthcare needs, because most of us don't have the training for it, the clinical training, and other times we don't have the time or the insurance that really can benefit this population. So there's a huge accessibility gap that I'm hoping to try and just close a little bit with my practice.
Gotcha. Wow, that's really good. That's interesting. Are you doing that right now in your the practice that you're associating in?
We do see some patients with intellectual and developmental disabilities, but again, because I'm not clinically trained for those kinds of procedures, we do have to refer quite a few of them out, which is why I'm trying to go for training next year.
Gotcha. Okay. So besides that, how else are you preparing for when you decide, are you going to open in San Francisco?
No, it will not be in San Francisco. It will be in the Bay Area though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you already started looking? Have you already made plans and everything? You kind of, I feel like you know your vision down, but like everything else behind it.
I have done an initial search of which location I would sort of want to be in, but I'm going to give it a couple more months because things are so dynamic right now because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not quite sure how the situation would change in the next couple of months. So I'm going to give it a couple more months to really find and hone a location down. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to kind of start that process. But the way I've been getting ready is I started getting ready for practice ownership, I want to say almost 2 years ago, because I started a nonprofit with two of my friends called the New Dentist Business Club. So it's a 501c3 nonprofit. And we initially just kind of started it because all of us wanted to start a practice and we really didn't know how to do it or how to get ourselves educated on the business side of dentistry. So we just started meeting in the conference room of my apartment building and just started talking about our future plans, like, hey, what do you want to do and how do we save, and what kind of budget do we need to maintain. But slowly that has kind of evolved into something very, very systematic. We got AGD PACE certification very recently. Wow. We get guest speakers. So now we meet about once a month. It's always online. So there's people from all over the country that kind of pop in, which is really fun. And every month we meet, we talk about some topic to do with the business side of dentistry. So last meeting that we had in December, earlier this month, was with Dentographics. So we had Kevin come from Dentographics teaching us about how demographic testing works and how to find that perfect location to start your practice. And I did find out about Dentographics, I believe, from maybe one of your first podcasts, the making of a startup, because I know Ashley used it. But just such a great service, and it's been a really fun way to kind of keep yourself accountable towards learning about the business side and also meeting new friends.
That's cool. So this is a nonprofit. Like can anybody join, or is there a specific membership thing?
Yeah, anybody can join. It's open to all new dentists or dental students. A lot of our members are new dentists. We do have a membership fee. It's about $100 for the whole year. And that goes into kind of getting you your CE and doing like paperwork on the back end. But yeah, it's pretty cost effective for the kind of CE and the quality of CE that they will get.
I like that. That's really, really cool. Okay, cool. So then right now in the associateship that you're in, what do you like and not really like about it? Where you're like, I'm going to take what I'm learning here to my practice. I don't want to do what I'm learning here to my practice, you know?
um, I actually feel like this sounds so cliche, but the associateship that I'm in right now is one of the best associateships I've ever been in.
Mm-hmm.
And I can kind of share why. So, and even the reason why I found this associateship is kind of interesting because I got that idea from another podcast, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why this associateship is so nice is because it's very close to where I live, so I love that. I no longer have to do a commute.
Yeah.
But B, it's run very, very well. So the practice owner's wife is actually our office manager, and the practice owner's two daughters are my dental assistants. So all of them are extremely well trained, very, very qualified. My dental assistants know exactly what they're doing. They're never kind of slacking off. They know patients. They know all the patients very, very well. It's like a family run, very homely practice. And even if I take vacation for like 2 weeks, for example, I'm going for the next 2 weeks, I'll be on vacation. I
Mm-hmm.
know that when I come back in January, my schedule will be full. That is something new to me because in my previous associateships, I worked at a corporate before. My schedule would never ever be full when I would be back from vacation. And the reason for that is because we are the ones who have to see patients and diagnose them in order to see them for treatment.
Mm-hmm.
But because this practice is so invested in the success of each and every associate or each and every hygienist, they make sure that our schedules are full no matter what. So even if I'm on vacation for the next 2 weeks, there's another associate who's working and who's, helping patients kind of come through. So we always kind of help each other. We build each other's schedules up, and it's just a very productive, very happy practice. I'm also never made to work like too hard. They will never put like squeeze patients in or do any
Mm-hmm.
of that. We always try to provide excellent high quality treatment because most of these patients are friends of the family for years and years. So they want to take care of everyone. They want to keep their reputation going. And I think the last thing that I should mention here, which is kind of important, is that this practice is kind of like a diamond because it's there are no other GP offices for at least 15 miles across, which is rare in a
Yeah.
place like the Bay Area, like to find a practice like that. And the reason for that is because it's kind of located in like this little town, which is not very heavily populated. And so what happens is that patients who are in that town pretty much want to see a dentist in that town and not have to
Mm-hmm.
go up to the city, like up to San Francisco or anywhere down in the peninsula to see a dentist. They want to stay in town. So we end up seeing everyone in the city. And if we have to refer patients out, then we have specialists that who are again not in the same area, they're somewhere else.
Yeah.
So there's always an incentive for us to add services to our office. So for example, I do a lot of extractions and I enjoy surgery. And my owner dentist used to not do a lot of surgery, he used to refer. And
Mm-hmm.
now that patients know that I can do surgery in the office, they're like, yay, great. I don't have to go to another specialist and, travel 20, 30 minutes to see them.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things I really, really like about the practice.
Wow. How did you find this associateship then?
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up. Um, So I knew that we were going to move in June. And I had about like a month and a half to kind of prepare and find an associateship. So I actually worked with Dentographics in this. They had already kind of given me a whole list of good areas to practice in, good areas to potentially even start my own practice in towards the beginning of this year. So I already had that data and I kind of used it to my biggest advantage. And I looked at areas that did not have a lot of dental practices that were kind of like diamonds, right? And what I did was I made a big list of dental offices on an Excel spreadsheet and checked the website of each practice and saw what kind of services are they providing. Ideally, I wanted somebody who was already doing some surgery or providing some kind of implants, so that because I place implants, so for me that would be a plus that they already had the equipment. And I was also checking how many hygienists they have. Some practices will mention that they have like 2 or 3 hygienists. In my mind, if you have at least 2 or 3 hygienists, it means you're busy, like you're established. So, you know, you can afford 2 or 3 hygienists. It means you have a ton of patients at least. So those were kind of the 2 things I was looking at. I was also looking at practices where the dentist is slightly older. So it's kind of close to 60 or you know, more than that, because then I know that there's always a potential of them retiring or wanting to get a new dentist in to sell the practice to. So that I wanted to kind of keep that door open as well. So I made this list of dentists and then I sent out a letter to each one of those dentists, kind of introducing myself. I wasn't overtly asking for an associateship, but I was just like, I'm a new dentist. I'm moving to San Francisco. These are kind of my credentials. I've done implant training, or, you know, I enjoy surgery. And I put in like a picture of me and my husband where we look like normal people and not like a bot that is just sending a letter. And I just kind of said that I'm new in the area. I would love to kind of, you know, grab coffee or, you know, find a mentor. That's kind of how I worded it. I wasn't expecting anyone to give me an associateship, but I did get, I think I sent out about 10 to 15 letters. Every one of them responded back. Like everyone loves getting a letter in the mail, even if they don't want to, you know, meet you for coffee or, you know, they don't have anything to say to you. They will still kind of respond and say thank you. So all of them responded saying, you know, I loved your letter. When you're in the city, please come, like stop by and, you know, meet me for lunch. Or they were all very nice. And then one dentist, like the dentist I ended up working with, he called me and he's like, I got your letter and I'm looking for an associate. Would you like to be my associate? And I was like, sure, that sounds perfect. So it just kind of happened. And I obviously wasn't kind of completely depending on these lists because I knew that there's always a potential that it might not lead to anything. So I was still looking on Indeed, and I reached out to all of my friends in the Bay Area, asking them for like contacts or, you know, just to try and expand my network and see if there was anyone looking for a job. So I even contacted like specialists who I knew from before. A couple of my specialist friends actually referred me to their dentists, dentists that they work with. And some of them also helped me set up interviews. So that's another plus. If someone is looking for a job, always kind of make sure to reach out to specialists because they really, really can help you a lot. But yeah, that's how I found this practice.
Nice. Okay, that's good. I like that. Yeah, like sending out letters. You're right. Like even if we don't, like I know when I get a letter, even if it's like a wedding invitation or something, like, oh my gosh, yeah, instead of an email, you know, it's different. And with the picture and everything. Different. Yeah, I like that. So then if you could, I know right now you think like, or you said that like your associateship is wonderful, right? Amazing, fantastic. What's something you feel like, oh, I don't like this though?
It's honestly, it's kind of hard to really say what I don't like, because in the past, my experiences have been very like roller coaster, like up and down. Like some of my associateships have really, really not been good. So this one in particular is actually very, very nice. It is an old practice, and it's located in kind of like a strip mall almost, which is like the downtown of the
Mhm.
of the little area that it's in. Um, but I mean, like how old it is also doesn't really bother me. It's
Mm.
fine the way it is. I just worry about if the doctor was to retire and his family were to leave, that's when the practice I think would change very drastically. Because I have seen now what a difference it makes when it's a family run practice, like a true family run practice where every member of the family is involved in the
Mhm.
practice, and they care about the bottom line, and they care about, all the people working there. They want them to be happy. If those people leave and then you get new people in, I think it would change the way things are. And that's something that I have kind of thought about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It would change. Yeah, if they were to leave, like the whole perspective and everything. If you don't mind me asking, Sampada, how do they? What's your payment, or not payment, but like, what's your pay structure look like when they pay you?
I get paid a daily minimum and a production percentage. So both.
Okay.
So for example, even if I go to work and I see um, maybe there's like 2 patients on the schedule and everybody else cancels for some reason, I would still get paid my daily minimum.
What makes you want to, I guess, do better? Like in the sense of like, okay, I know I'm also getting paid per production, right? Like plus daily minimum, right? And let's just say you have a full schedule, and I don't want to say like what makes you want to sell more, but what makes you want to like diagnose better, right? Where you're like, well, look, you have this going on, this, compared to someone who's like, I just got to get my paycheck and I don't really care, you know?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I feel like this is the first time I'm hearing something like that, but that makes a lot of sense. Um, Honestly, at this point, because of this is my third year of practicing, um, I know what I'm capable of producing every month. And I know that even if I take maybe a week off, or maybe take 2 weeks off the following month, I know at a minimum what my pay would be. And I'm very happy where it's at. When I see patients, so this the way this practice is structured, it doesn't give me that kind of stress that, oh, you need to diagnose a lot so that you can treat a lot and
Mm-hmm.
you can produce more. This practice just doesn't give me that mentality, because my minimum pay itself is significant. In my previous associateship, in my last like two associateships ago,
Mm-hmm.
my first job, I remember um, the supervising dentist who would kind of take care of maybe 50 new associates who have just joined the corporate structure.
Mm-hmm.
They would always kind of tell you that, oh, um, if you make say 60,000, in production value, in this month, then you will make like 28% of that. And if you make 70,000, you will make 29%, or 80,000, you will make 30%. So it was always like, it was that mentality that, oh, I need to make more so I can get the 29%, or I need to make more so I can get the 30%. And it's very, very stressful when they do that to you. I remember they would also send us like a daily tally of who is at the top of the company. So you would be ranked according to your daily production, which can be motivating if you're on the top, but very demoralizing and embarrassing if you're
Yeah.
on the bottom. And it's a really weird way to pit people against each other, because we're all dentists and we have a different way of doing things. And at the end of the day, we're just trying to help patients feel better. We can't be in this mentality of trying to diagnose a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, I just personally want to provide treatment that um, is high quality, and that it's good and it's not excessive. I never want to be the dentist who sticks out because she does things differently, like, or does things too, like, way too differently than the owner dentist. I want to try and keep it consistent with the owner dentist, because I don't want them to look bad, and I don't want our practice to look bad. I want our reputation to always be consistent and good.
Yeah.
So my goal is to, if you know, to just diagnose the way I would diagnose my parent or my husband, take care of them, and I don't have to fix a lot of things that maybe are just like a millimeter here and there. I don't have to be that dentist. I just want to do good work and take care of people.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like always talking about production will almost hinder you a little bit, right? Like it'll set you back if they're always telling, like the owners telling you like production, hey, you can be making more. Hey, think about making more, and you're kind of like, well, uh, so what, because your
Yeah,
basic needs are already
and
being met.
yeah, and it's so I should say something here, because this is very important. I
Mhm.
think the fear of not making enough, or of wanting to produce more or make more money, always comes from the fact that you are already not making enough. So if you know that your basic needs are not being met, you are fearful of whether you're going to be able to pay this month's rent. So for example, in one of my associateships, where my first associateship, where I was super naive coming out of dental school, for me, like I mentioned, the biggest thing for me was getting someone who understands how my visa works. Like, that
Mhm.
was the bare minimum. Please, like, understand my visa,
Yeah.
and have that process figured out and ironed out. And I didn't negotiate my pay. I settled for very, very low daily minimum. I did not negotiate my percentage. And I remember, I think 5 or 4 months into that associateship, there was another new associate just like me who had graduated from another dental school, who had a higher daily minimum than me. And we just kind of started talking so casually. And he was like, "Oh, what is your daily minimum?" And I was like, 600. And he was like, "Oh, I make 700." I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
How is that possible? Because we both graduated at the same time. And in my head, I was thinking, like, how is that even possible that he's making more than me? And then when I remember when I shared this with my family, the first reaction was, "Oh, is it because you're a woman and he's a guy? Did they, is that the reason?" And I realized that no, that's not the reason. It's actually just because I didn't negotiate. All employers, whoever they are, whichever part of the world they are in, they always have a range in which they want to pay people. It's
Mhm.
X to Y. Like, so for example, for new associates, they'll say, "Okay, I will pay them between 500 and 1,000 per day. And let me see if that person, if the new associate comes back at me and asks for more, maybe I will give it to them." But I was super naive. I never asked for more. I didn't think that was something I could do. And I was maybe too fearful of how that process even works. So I didn't negotiate. And that's something I have learned over the years. You have to negotiate your daily minimum and your percentage of production at the beginning. A lot of people think that, oh, maybe 6 months later or a year later, I will ask for a raise, because then I would have added services to the practice. But you
Mhm.
need to know what your worth is at the beginning. And especially as foreign trained dentists, some of us have come to this country with different kinds of experiences. We have maybe placed implants in other countries, or I had a colleague who was a periodontist from Peru. So he brings a lot of value to a practice automatically, because he can do so many things that most GPs don't do. So you have to know your worth, and you have to just negotiate at the beginning.
I like that.
Yeah,
If you don't mind me asking, what's your percentage production that you negotiated?
30%.
Okay.
Yeah, 30% of production. 30% is the bare minimum, I would say. You can go up to maybe 32. I have a friend who actually has a much higher percentage of production, but he has been an associate for like 10, 15 years, and he has
Mhm.
been with the same practice. So when he started working as an associate at his practice, he automatically had a higher percentage, and that has kind of just stayed. But I have noticed, especially in the Bay Area, because it's so competitive,
Mhm.
and anyone can see this data if they go on Indeed. Most practice owners are saying $500. They will pay $500 daily minimum, and I have friends who have made like 25%, 24%, or even 20% of production, and that is very, very low. You're setting yourself up for failure, because um, even like a single percentage number, like 20 to 21%, makes a big difference to your paycheck. So you have to start from the top and ask exactly what you deserve and what you need. And even if you're a new doctor who has just graduated from dental school, 30% really is kind of industry standard, no matter where you are.
Got you. So then it's good right now, like for the associates listening, to kind of say, okay, they just a good roundabout would be basic daily would be 600, 700, right? And then percentage would be like 30% minimum.
I would actually advocate for a higher daily minimum, or advocate for like 800 or higher than that. If you want to say 900 or 1,000, I mean, I know this might be sounding so excessive, but believe me, most employers will come down and say, okay, will you take 900? If you give them 1,000, they will say, can you take 900 or can you take 800? But if you start small, it's just going to shrink your pool even more. So
Yeah.
ask for the best, and if they go lower, you will be okay because you kind of expected it. But don't start small.
Yeah. I think there
Yeah.
might be also like a fear of, let's just say, the practice owner is like, yeah, I'm going to pay you that much. That's a lot, but I'm going to pay you that much. And because, you say you're worth it. They come on and then they start putting the pressure on, like, what am I paying you? I'm paying you this much. Come on, you got to produce more. Do you ever think that that may happen? Has that happened?
It could happen. Um, for me, it hasn't happened. And I feel like, yeah, it could definitely happen because people are so different. And
Mm,
I feel like the person you may meet at an interview might be very different from the person that 6 months down, right?
yeah.
You tend to understand how people are. So it could definitely happen. I would say keep your options open, apply to a lot of different associateships. And when you're going out for interviews, really, you should use that opportunity to actually interview the other person. Like, is this person someone you can learn from? Are they nice? Do they are there any red flags in this situation? Because sometimes there will be employers, for example, who will say that I'm a perfectionist. I want everything to be perfect, and I check X-rays of everything. I will go through your charts and check everything, and all of that is okay if they want to audit your work. That there is a responsibility that owners should have in auditing their associates' work, but looking for perfection in someone who has just graduated, or who is like 1 or 2 years out, is a little unreasonable, because most associates who are like within 3 years or 4 years require a lot of guidance and mentorship. They will make mistakes, and you need to be kind enough to help them through that, instead of kind of dismissing them and making them feel small. So um, it's hard to be an associate in this climate,
Yeah.
especially during the pandemic. But know your worth and ask for what you deserve is my advice.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I was doing an interview not that long ago where the guy said, hey, if you're going to hire an associate, now that's your customer, right? And you want to keep your customer happy. You want to make sure you're catering to them so they can continue to return and do what they love to do for you, right? And so it's kind of, that's a good way to put it. Like, yeah, you do want to keep them happy. You don't want them to be stressed out all the time, or oh my gosh, I can't even cover my needs and all these things. Feel
That's so
valued.
true. That's so true. And if you ask business owners, like what is their, like one of their biggest challenges, many of them who are absentee owners who maybe own a couple of practices and they have associates in each of them, they will tell you one of the biggest headaches is finding a good quality associate, a good associate who will stay, because that is hard. Finding an associate who will stay in the practice for 1, 2, 3 years and keep patients genuinely happy is really, really difficult. So you have to find a good associate, but keep them happy. And the other thing is that wherever we go, the community of dentists is super, super small. So if you have mistreated an associate, or, you know, maybe skimped out on their paycheck, there have been stories where sometimes employers don't pay their associates on time, or maybe forget to pay them, or they don't pay them correctly as per production, because calculating production can be difficult, let's face it. But kind of doing that consistently makes it a pattern, and that's not okay. So if you have done stuff like that with associates, associates are going to tell their friends.
Yeah.
And that is going to make other people not want to work for you. Because believe it or not, whenever we look for a job and we are looking for an employer, the first thing we do is we find other people who have worked for that same employer to make sure that we are in good hands. So our reputation is very, very fragile, and we are such a small community, and we have to keep each other happy. So I think the best way forward is just maintaining good relationships with other people and taking care of other people, especially as a business owner. Take care of your associates and help them out. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, man, this is such good advice. This is great insights. I feel like we can talk about that a lot, but I wanted to touch a topic. You mentioned earlier that you started writing a lot, and that created something, which was what?
Yeah, I started writing in 2019, just as a way to kind of work out conflicts in my head, and just as a form of like self-care, like reflection, to figure out how my day went, stuff like that, with very, very simple, humble beginnings. I ended up writing and really enjoying the process, because it ended up being very healing for me. When you're going through a difficult time, for me, that difficult time was just being in my associateship, which was like, what do they call it? Golden handcuffs. Like I was getting paid very well, and it's hard to leave a good job which pays you well. But at the same time, if you're unhappy, you know you have to quit, or you know you have to find something else, something better. So writing at that time really kind of helped me heal and helped me figure out what the next step was. And I ended up building a website so that I could publish my blogs once every couple of weeks. That slowly started to gain a lot of traction. And I ended up writing articles for the American Dental Association. And all of this year, actually 2021, I was writing a business article for them once a month. And writing has opened up so many opportunities for me, as not just as a healthcare professional, but just as a human being. I feel I'm able to help other dentists and dental students with different kinds of stories, either about the business side of dentistry or just my experience being an immigrant. And writing was actually what helped me get chapters written out for my book. So I recently launched my book. It's called Persevering, and it's for foreign trained dentists. It's a complete guide on the application process to different schools, how to get yourself ready for this crazy thing called an international dental program in the United States, how to get ready for that, and what kind of work opportunities lie ahead of you. And it also has a bonus chapter on if you were to practice in Canada, what that route looked like for you. And the book was just a very fun process, because I got to interview all of my friends who are now very, very successful. Some of them are practice owners, some of them are practicing in Canada, others are in the US.
Mhm.
I even interviewed like my program director from the University of Washington. He was so happy to share his journey and kind of what they looked for in applicants. So the book is really something that I wish I had when I was applying to dental school, because I was so lost and confused for those 3 years. And I really, really struggled. And that has also come only as a result of writing.
Wow. Okay. So then that whole book that you created was written in how length of time?
It took me 2 years. So when I
Okay.
started writing it, I had no intention of writing a book or ever publishing any of it. I thought I would just publish little snippets as a blog. But then I want to mention this specific group. It's a mastermind. It's a women's mastermind called the Creative Collective, and it started by a dentist called Shivani Kamodia. Um, an amazing, amazing friend. She now is in Japan because she
Mhm.
moved there with her husband, who's in the Navy. But she started this group about towards the beginning of the pandemic, and it consists of not just dentists but also chiropractors, physicians, but it's all women, and all of us have a common element of a side hustle or a business, or we have some of us are speakers or authors. So we have like a specific passion outside of our clinical skills.
Mhm.
And every meeting we meet up and one of us gets to present, and we get to interact with each other and really like brush ideas off of each other. So I brought up the fact very casually that I have been writing
Mhm.
all of these blogs on being a foreign trained dentist and how difficult the journey was. And one of my mentors, who you may know of, Sonia Chopra,
Oh yeah, Sonia.
yeah, the famous Sonia Chopra,
Uh-huh.
she actually mentioned, she was like, you need to like build a course, or you need to write a book, you need to like get this out there, because there's so many foreign trained dentists who are always asking the same questions. And that kind of gave me a lot of motivations. Ever since then, the whole group of like the Creative Collective they've been really my cheerleaders through this process. And they created like a sense of accountability for me, that you need to publish this book. And because of that, I was able to finally launch it last month.
That's awesome. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I 100% agree with the title of it, like persevering. Like you did it. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of people who really want to do it all over again. And then, you know what I mean? And you're still going to keep doing
Yeah.
it because you're going to make your own practice, and then you're going to keep going out. Who knows from there, you know?
Yeah. I know. I love the title. So my one of my mentors, Dr. Kathy Hung, was actually the one who helped me come up with the title of the book. And it's so true, because I feel like we were persevering to get into dental school, but then you're persevering even after that when you find your practice. And even if you start your practice, it still continues. Like you're always working towards the next big thing. It never
Yeah.
really stops. So yeah, I love the title too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's
Yeah.
good. Awesome, Sampada. Thank you so much for being with us. It was a pleasure. But before we say goodbye, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Sure. I have a website. It's called sampadadeshpandedds.com, or they can reach out to me on Instagram. I am at dr.deshpande.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Sampada, for being with us. And guys, if you are interested, definitely go in the show notes below, reach out to her, check out her book. It's all going to be in the show notes below as well. And thank you so much for being with us. It was a pleasure. And we'll hear from you soon.
Thank you, Michael.